I think we need to find moral clarity, in this country. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history,
oh, this is gonna be great.
What in the world? They just don't learn. It's almost like they're so heavily invested in this big lie that they have no other choice but to just keep lying. The media, for at least the last 8 years, has willingly gone along with our government to deceive the American people about many things, like Russian collusion, the Hunter Biden laptop, and they've been outright lying to the country for the last 4 years about who's actually controlling America. And now, once again, on January 6th, the Spew and Legacy media are continuing to push this false narrative about what actually happened in 2021.
I think we need to find moral clarity, in this country.
Look who's talking.
And I just remember after January 6th, you had someone like Mitch McConnell placing the blame on January 6th where it belonged, squarely on Donald Trump's shoulders. Mm-hmm. And then you started seeing people backtrack that and losing their moral center. You had Condoleezza Rice, I believe, on this very show saying, we need to move on from January 6th. I say no. You don't move on, because January 6th was an atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history, like World War II.
What?
Things that happened, like the Holocaust.
Say what?
Chattel slavery.
What the actual did you just say to me right now?
We need to never forget, because past becomes prologue if you forget any race.
Where do I even begin? There is no way that any sane person believes that a minor riot is somehow comparable to a Holocaust or a world war that went on for multiple years and killed millions of people. One, we only ever commemorate right-wing violence, while the much more prevalent left-wing violence just gets memory hold. Like the attack on the White House in June of 2020 that left 60 Secret Service agents injured, while all charges were dropped and never to be spoken of again.
We need to never forget, because past becomes prologue if you forget any race.
This is quite literally an alternate reality created by the very same people who have been lying to you for the last 4 years about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. You're seeing this exact kind of insane sentiment all throughout the legacy media, where they're warping reality by twisting some facts and omitting others that are inconvenient to their narrative.
They are martyrs in the minds of Donald Trump, and I want to be very clear, not just Donald Trump, Joe, millions of Americans. And I can say that having stood on the west front of the Capitol on January 6th, watching that attack unfold. And part of me that day was a recognition, and I thought the video would send a clear message, a willingness among thousands of Americans who are willing to take up arms, including flagpoles with American flags on them.
What?
And yet what we watched unfold over these last 4 years was an effort by Donald Trump and his allies to wage a campaign not just for political victory, but to come to the defense of those attackers that we watched violently attack the Capitol. There was, among some Americans, denialism about who attacked the Capitol that day, a rejection of the video and the convictions and the admittance of guilt that so many of these Trump-aligned, pro-Trump attackers went before the courts and admitted to their own violence. For so many, there was a denialism, but others, there was a dismissiveness. And for another great segment of this country, there was a justification that increasingly became relevant here in the lead up to 2024 election.
Everything that guy just said is bullshit. Thank you.
Next, there was not an attack by thousands of armed Trump supporters like that MSNBC reporter claimed. Around 400 people were charged with rioting and destruction of property. No problems there. These other 1,500 people or so these media hacks claimed admitted wrongdoing and were convicted were literally just peaceful protesters who the government threw the full force at the law at for supposedly trespassing. But the media and Democrats clearly want you conflating those people with the much smaller handful of people that were violent. And what they never, ever talk about is the other 120,000 peaceful protesters, which seems mostly peaceful to me based on their own standards. And another point on that, if Donald Trump had actually told people to go to the Capitol and riot, which he didn't do, he told people to march peacefully and make your voices heard, you would have seen that 120,000 of people rioting. Instead, they just peacefully protested, exactly like Trump said to do. It was only a very, very small, tiny minority of people that were actually incited into rioting. But I don't think that that was from Donald Trump. While years worth of Democrat riots led to dozens of unalived cops, civilians, and neighborhoods, it resulted in the charges against those people being widely dropped. And to add insult to injury, those rioters and looters were actually paid out millions by the cities they attacked. Cities they were attacking based on the misinformation spread by the likes of CNN, MSNBC, and the other legacy media who had people thinking that racist white cops were hunting down and killing innocent, unarmed black people. For years, even to this day, they've been claiming that officers were killed, which is an outright lie. One officer died the next day of natural causes. Then there were 4 other officers who supposedly all unalived themselves at the same time because the day before there was a riot. Does that make any sense to anyone? Why would anybody end their own life because there was a riot the previous day? After 4 years of Democrat riots, how many police unalived themselves? The answer, as far as I can tell, is 0, because that makes absolutely no sense. Which leads you to another question. Why has the press never asked this question? Instead, they just do what they always do and go along with whatever the government tells them. It seems like an obvious question to ask why these police officers would do that to themselves because some people rioted the day before. It makes much more sense that these police either knew or saw something that made them a liability, and they were taken out because of that. Which is probably why nobody wants to talk about it, because they don't want to be unalived too. People with critical thinking skills notice these things. By the way, why is the Capitol protected with fences and enough officers today, but not on J6 2021? Why was Ray Epps inciting people to storm the Capitol, then treated as a victim of right-wing conspiracy theories by the same legacy media and Democrat Party that compare peaceful protesters to attacking Japanese soldiers? Why has Biden's DOJ spent so much time targeting their political opponents? Why have the assassination attempts and so-called failures of the FBI and U.S. Secret Service already in the process of being memory holed? People notice these things, and it's why they have rejected the media's version of events, because the media constantly lies. And they don't just lie randomly, they seem to always lie in service of the Democrat Party and so-called deep state. All right, folks, did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments, and if you're still here, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. I do post on a regular basis, so keep checking back for more. Thanks a lot.